Let's talk about political violence and Charlie Kirk and his assassination. His assassination is tragic. I'm not trying to do this about politics. I just want to talk about specifically the problem of justifying political violence. The problem about political violence is, and when people start justifying political violence, the problem isn't that there are politically violent people on your, quote, side, because they're not on your side all the time. They aren't. Historically, a political violent group, say, is the Klan. Now, the Klan's violence was against minorities, primarily black people. But they were all for white power and all that stuff, right? So, but in the political violence that the Klan committed, there was a special level of violence that they would commit against what they would justify as race traitors. People like me, white people. If white people stood against their political philosophy of blacks being inferior and all this stuff, that if you stood against them, they wouldn't just lynch you, they would do special things to you because you were a race traitor. People who justify political violence, once they believe in political violence, they developed that concept about traitors to their political ideology that they believe requires violence. That's what Charlie Kirk's assassin believed in. In recent American history, one of the great political violent issues is January 6th. That was political violence. That was political violence. The Republican Party said it was like a justified thing. They even came out and said that. A lot of people started justifying it, and Donald Trump ultimately pardons January 6thers. People who commit political violence. But again, the same problem with political violence is that inevitably the group that does the political violence stuff, they have their race traitors. People who defy their political ideology inside of their, quote, side. The white people who are against the Klan. And this isn't to say that you, if you believe in political violence, that you are the Klan. You're not. But you have that same concept in your head. That people on your side who disagree with you are traitors to your cause. Are traitors to the cause, right? So you use your political violence against that person. And that, at least, what appears to be on the surface of what happened, what seems to have been the motive of the shooter of Charlie Kirk. It appears that the shooter, his family was Republican. He posted to a lot of right-wing websites. The bullets that he probably was using with his gun that he owned before had the writings, on it, that if you are reading this, you're gay. Because maybe he believed in violence towards gay LGBTQ people. That was a thought in his head, because it takes a lot to write on bullets. So he had these ideologies. He posted in hard right-wing groups. He used the frog thing, which you're not going to see leftist use, because the frog, that frog thing is kind of a symbol of the Klan. So we don't do that. So this is like a hard right guy. But he's probably one of those people who followed the philosophies regarding Epstein. So Epstein has been a major role in Republicans and MAGA for a long time. It goes back to this thing called Pizzagate. Now, Pizzagate is that there's this pizza place that was in Washington, D.C., and if you went into this place and you were a Democrat, you just had to, say magic words or something like that, pull a lever, something like that, and poof, you go down into the basement of the pizza place. And when you're in the basement of the pizza place, you are sucking up the blood of the children, and that the youth of those children keep you young and vibrant and healthy. And things like that. And the justifications that MAGA and Q use is that you should use violence. You could potentially use violence to stop that because you are preventing pedophilia and that. Of course, people would say that the centerpiece of that ideology of the sucking of blood out of children in order to maintain youth is blood libel. Blood libel is an anti-Semitic position because, like the Nazis and everyone, and all the times when Jews were killed, there was this philosophy that Jews kill children and they suck the blood out of the children and that keeps them somehow young. Very bizarre. Some on the right, when you mention blood libel, say, no, this has nothing to do with blood libel. Fine, But still, it's an anti-Semitic capability, it's a racist ideology, it is insane. This guy probably believed in maybe not Pizzagate type stuff, but in multiple other examples that the right wing believed when it came to Epstein and it came to sex trafficking, the justification of violence, the justification to be able to use violence against those who participated and supported and protected sex trafficking of minors. And whenever you're dealing with sex trafficking of minors in the right wing, eventually you run into the blood libel concept. That Epstein wasn't just simply selling, providing sexual services with underage people, that he was doing blood libel stuff. That rich celebrities from all over the place went to his island, sucked the blood out of the children, and kept themselves young. And that is what is outside of the sex stuff, is what they believe that Epstein was doing. Now, this guy, if he believes in those philosophies, like many people say that he does, then he sees people like Kurt as race traitors, protectors of the blood libel. You are race traitors, and you justify, and our society justified January 6th, justified political violence, educating this person and people like him that political violence is okay. So eventually that gets into your mind. And once that seeks into the mind of the public, then you run into people like this guy who says, okay, Charlie Kirk, you're a race traitor. And then he shoots him because he's fully justified. He's as justified about killing him as the Klan were regarding how they treated race traitors. No difference. It's why January 6th was wrong. And our society has to come to grips with political violence because it is wrong. And we need to stop thinking that on our, quote, sides, that political violence might be okay, that people who do political violence on our, quote, side is acceptable. No, it is not acceptable. And you want to know why? Because people on the right and on the left, every single person who has done political violence directs it against their own. Let's take the environmental community, for example. I'm an environmentalist, but I'm not radicalized. There are some people in the environmental community who realize that, yes, if we don't deal with climate change now, or whatever, that it's going to cause all these problems, and taking aggressive action, like spiking trees, for example, is fully justified. And those spiking of trees did result in people being killed, people in the forest industry. And then some people in the environmental community justify those people's actions. The problem with justifying those people's actions is when those people look at people like me, is they think I'm a race traitor because I'm not as extreme. I'm not as hardcore. And as a result, I am a traitor to the cause. It's not about right or left. It's about what happens when you believe that violence is justified in the name of your politics. Once a person believes that violence is justified in the name of their political belief, what inevitably occurs is that person eventually looks at his own side and decides to seek retribution. And this deals with political ethics and honor. Ethics and honor would say that the people who participated in January 6th and those people who fed the ideologies of January 6th have nothing to do with right or left. They don't. They have to deal with the people that believe in political violence and the justification of political violence. And they need to be removed. And since we didn't remove them, since we didn't work collectively as a country to simply say that January 6th was wrong and political violence is wrong and get rid of the people who conduct political violence, you see, we didn't. And since we didn't, we've taught a lot of people out there who are in MAGA right wing, who believe that political violence is justified. And that's what happened with Charlie Kirk. Here's the warning. There's a lot of things that Trump is doing right now that is contrary to that of what MAGA has been taught as what is moral, or what these people have been taught as what is moral, who believe in political violence. Those people who believe in political violence really do not have loyalty to anything else other than the ideology, and they will take violent action. And that's what's happening. With me and Epstein, no, I'm never going to stop talking about Epstein and Trump, or Epstein and anyone else connected to Epstein, because what Epstein did was wrong. Abuse and sexual abuse of children and women is wrong. It is immoral. It is not a standard that should be allowed to stand inside of Washington, D.C. and our political leadership, because it is wrong. And not having high ethical standards, or at least a basic level of ethical standard with regard to people who serve, is wrong. Do I know that people who are in MAGA may take those things and do violence? The answer is yes. And that's tragic. Because those people believe in political violence. And the efforts that Trump does that they believe is contrary to the principles of MAGA, they believe in violence and take violent action. And I'm sorry for that. And it's why you need to have higher ethical standards for people who serve. It's why there should be criminal background checks to every single person who serves. Every single person that they're elected should have to pass a universal background check that applies to everyone in the country, and that does not have really political bent to it, but is all about legal, and whether or not the person who is there is legal. And, you know, even checking their financial records to make certain while they are serving that they are not doing things that are insider trading, that a financial check on the people who serve in Congress, Senate, and the President are not abusing their office for financial gain. We should also be having, 14th Amendment Section 3, to be able to force the two sides to come together by having 2/3 of Congress and the Senate to have to say that a person coming into the House and the Senate I may politically disagree with you, but I know you're here for an honest debate and a powerful debate on what makes our society function. That should stand. We need to have an ethical standard for those who serve. An ethical standard that is high enough to be able to tell people who believe in political violence that you don't need to do that, because the people that are serving, though they disagree with you greatly, that those people who are serving in Congress and the Senate and the President are ethical people. They're just ethical people who have a disagreement with you. And we need to hold that. We need to finally sit there and say, no, we desire ethical people in office. And we must have ethical people in office. Otherwise, people who believe in political violence will be tended to go towards violence, because that is part of the reason why people do violence, is that they believe that the other side is simply unethical. And that the people who betray them, the race traitors on their side, are unethical. So you need to develop an ethical standard. And right now, Washington clearly doesn't have one, because we literally cannot say that knowing Epstein, being connected to Epstein, giving money to Epstein, being accused of sexual assault by the children of Epstein is not enough to simply have that person simply be removed from office, and anyone and everyone connected to him, and having anyone who said you should be voting for a man who is that connected to Epstein is justified. All of those people should be removed and be replaced by new people. And I don't care if those new people are people that disagree with me in thousands of ways. I don't care. That's not what's important. I disagree with you, but if I disagree with you and know that you are honorable, then that's beautiful. I can disagree with you and believe and understand that you are an honorable person. But if I disagree with you and I believe that you are a defender of pedophilia and things of that nature, then I really can't have a conversation with you. It's difficult to have a conversation with a person who justifies that sort of thing. We need to have a standard. And we can have that. So let's go do it. Like, follow, subscribe.